The clock on the nightstand glowed 2:47 a.m., its red digits cutting through the dim haze of a roadside motel room. Elias Crow Madigan lay sprawled on the sagging bed, the faint rumble of distant semis, the only sound breaking the night's heavy silence. His leather jacket hung over a chair, scarred from years of road dust and forgotten brawls, and his boots sat by the door like silent sentinels. Sleep had been shallow, haunted by echoes of old oaths sworn under starless skies. Then the phone shattered it all. A shrill ring that yanked him upright, heart pounding like a V-twin engine revving to life. He snatched it up, voice gravelly from disuse. "Yeah, Elias, it's Marina." Her words came in gasps, choked with sobs that twisted something deep in his gut. He did it again. My arm, it's broken. I can feel the bone. Oh God, it hurts so much. The world narrowed to that voice, fragile and frayed at the edges. Crow's free hand clenched the bedsheet, knuckles whitening against the faded floral pattern. He knew the cadence of her fear, the way it clipped short like a spark plug firing wrong. Not the terror of strangers, but the intimate dread of home turned cage. "Where are you?" he demanded, already swinging his legs off the bed, feet hitting the cool linoleum. "Home. Our place in Willow Creek. He's passed out now, but... Elias, he's waking up soon. I locked the bedroom door, but... Listen to me, Marina. Tranca a porta. Lock it tight. Don't make a sound. I'm coming right now." His words were steel forged in the fires of too many regrets. He could picture her there, huddled in the corner of that cramped apartment, the phone pressed to her ear like a lifeline, her free arm cradling the injured one. Bruises blooming like storm clouds on her skin, the kind that whispered of cycles unbroken. He ended the call and moved like a shadow, pulling on his boots with practiced fury. The mirror by the sink caught his reflection. 42 years, etched into a face hardened by desert winds and battlefield scars. A jagged line ran from his temple to jaw, a souvenir from a war that had taken more than limbs. But it was the eyes that burned now, dark and unyielding, carrying the weight of a promise made decades ago. Back when they were kids, scraping by in a trailer park that smelled of rust and rain, he'd sworn to her, "No one touches you. Not while I'm breathing." He'd been 16, she 12, and the words had sealed them tighter than blood. Outside, the night air hit like a slap, crisp and laced with the tang of pine from the nearby woods. His Harley waited in the lot, a black beast under the motel's flickering neon sign. Harley-Davidson Softail, customized with chrome accents that gleamed faintly in the moonlight. Crow straddled it, the leather seat creaking under his weight, and twisted the key. The engine roared to life, a guttural thunder that vibrated through his bones, drowning out the motel's hum. He didn't bother with a helmet. The wind would clear his head, sharpen the rage into focus. The highway unspooled before him like a vein of black tar, headlights slicing through the darkness. Willow Creek was 2 hours north, through winding back roads that hugged the edge of forgotten hills. Crow leaned into the first curve, the bike's tires gripping asphalt, worn smooth by 1,000 riders like him. Gilt rode shotgun, heavier than the saddlebags slung low. He'd been gone too long, chasing ghosts across state lines with his crew, the Iron Vipers, a brotherhood bound by ink and unbreakable codes. They'd pulled him from the abyss after the war, given him purpose when the VA docs offered only pills and pity. But Marina. She'd slipped through the cracks, her calls growing rarer, her voice thinner each time. Memories flickered like taillights in the rear view. Their father, a drunk with fists like hammers, gone too early to cancer that ate him from the inside. Mother had followed, worn down by the same poison. Marina had married young, thinking love could rewrite the script. But her husband, that snake Rick, was cut from the same rotten cloth, promises turning to threats, affection to control. Crow had warned her once, shown up at their door with his vest patched in viper colors, but she'd begged him to leave, eyes pleading for normalcy. "He's changing," she'd said. Now this. The road climbed, engine snarling against the grade. Dawn was still a rumor on the horizon, but the sky lightened to indigo, stars fading like old regrets. Crow's mind raced ahead. Rick was a mechanic at the local garage, connected to rough types, small-time crooks who peddled parts under the table. Confronting him meant more than one broken arm. It meant unraveling the web, calling in favors from cops who'd look the other way or worse. But Crow wasn't built for half measures. He'd get her out, patch her up at the first clinic he saw, then circle back with the crew. 50 strong, they'd form a wall of leather and loyalty, ensuring no one touched her again. A deer bolted across the road, eyes wide in the headlights' glare. Crow swerved, the bike fishtailing before steadying. His pulse thrummed in his ears, matching the piston's rhythm. The wind whipped at his jacket, carrying the scent of sagebrush and impending rain. He thought of the Viper's creed, etched on his forearm in faded tattoo. Ride for the fallen, stand for the silent. Marina was both, fallen into hell, silent too long. As the first hints of gold streaked the sky, Willow Creek's outskirts appeared. Ramshackle houses with peeling paint, a diner sign buzzing faintly. Crow downshifted, the engine's growl softening to a predatory purr. He knew the address by heart, Maple Street, Unit 14, a squat building that looked like it had lost a fight with time. Tires crunched on gravel as he pulled up, killing the engine. Silence rushed in, broken only by his boots on the path. The door to the apartment hung slightly ajar, a sliver of yellow light spilling out. Crow's hand went to the knife at his belt, not for blood but for leverage. He pushed inside, the air thick with stale beer and fear. "Marina!" His voice was low, a command wrapped in care. From the bedroom, a muffled sob. He crossed the room in 3 strides, testing the knob. Locked, as she'd said. "It's me! Open up!" The door creaked open, and there she was, pale, trembling. Her left arm swollen and cradled against her chest. Tears carved tracks down her cheeks, but her eyes lit with desperate relief. "Elias, you came." He pulled her into a hug, careful of the injury, the scent of her shampoo mixing with the metallic tang of pain. "Always, sis. Now let's get you out of here." Outside, the dawn broke fully, casting long shadows that promised a reckoning. Crow had arrived not just to save her, but to honor the vow that had survived wars, roads, and years of silence. The cycle ended today, with truth, not fists. But first, safety. He guided her toward the bike, the world waking around them, unaware of the storm brewing in the heart of a man who'd ride through hell for family. Word count, 872. Marina's breath hitched as Crow supported her weight, his arm a steady anchor around her waist. The morning light filtered through the overgrown oaks lining Maple Street, painting the cracked sidewalk in soft amber hues. Her apartment building loomed behind them like a weary sentinel, its faded brick walls whispering of too many unspoken nights. She winced with each step, the swollen arm dangling limp, a dull throb radiating like heat from a dying engine. Crow's eyes scanned the shadows. Rick's truck was still parked crookedly in the lot, its hood up from a half-hearted repair job the night before. No movement inside, but the air hummed with potential threat, thick as the dew clinging to the grass. "Easy now," Crow murmured, his voice a low rumble that cut through her haze of pain. He eased her onto the Harley's passenger seat, the leather warm from the ride. From the saddlebag, he pulled a spare jacket, wrapping it gently around her shoulders to shield the injury from the chill. The bike's chrome caught the rising sun, flashing like a warning signal. Marina's face, pale and streaked with dried tears, turned up to him, eyes the same stormy grey as his own, carrying the weight of shared history. "What about him? Rick? He'll come after us." Crow straddled the bike, firing the engine with a twist that sent vibrations coursing through them both. "He tries, he meets the road's end. But first, we get you fixed up." He glanced back, ensuring she held on, her good hand gripping his jacket's edge. The throttle responded like an old friend, propelling them forward with a throaty growl that echoed off the quiet houses. Willow Creek stirred awake. A milk truck rumbled past, its driver tipping a nod. Curtains twitched in windows, faces peering out at the unlikely pair tearing down the street. The road out of town wound through mist-shrouded valleys, the Harley's tires humming over potholes that jarred Marina's arm. Drawing sharp gasps from her, Crow kept the pace steady, not reckless, safety first always. The wind tugged at their clothes, carrying the earthy scent of damp soil and wildflowers blooming defiant along the roadside. Memories surfaced unbidden, summers when they were kids, racing stolen bikes down these same back roads, laughing until their sides ached. Back then, promises were simple. Protect the weak, stand tall. Now they were lifelines, frayed but unbroken. 10 miles out, the sign for Mercy General Clinic appeared. A modest building nestled against a hillside, its parking lot empty save for a lone ambulance. Crow pulled in smoothly, the engine's roar fading to a purr before silence. He helped Marina off, her legs unsteady, and they crossed the gravel lot together, his bootsteps crunching like gravel under tires. Inside, the lobby smelled of antiseptic and fresh coffee, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. A nurse at the desk looked up, her expression shifting from boredom to concern as she took in Marina's pallor and the makeshift sling. "What happened?" the nurse asked, voice gentle but probing, guiding them to an exam room. White walls, a narrow bed with crisp sheets, monitors beeping softly like distant heartbeats. Marina hesitated, eyes flicking to Crow. He nodded, standing by the door like a guardian shadow. "Fell down the stairs," she whispered, the lie slipping out automatic, honed by years of covering tracks, but her voice cracked and the nurse's gaze sharpened, noting the purple bloom of bruises peeking from her sleeve, marks too patterned for a simple tumble. Crow's jaw tightened, fists clenching at his sides. He knew the drill. Hospitals meant questions, forms, and sometimes calls to authorities who'd rather file reports than fix the root. While the nurse fetched the doctor, he stepped closer to Marina, squeezing her good hand. Truth comes later. When it's safe, right now, heal. The doctor arrived, a wiry man in his 50s with wire-rimmed glasses and a calm that spoke of too many midnight shifts. He examined the arm with careful hands, X-rays confirming the fracture, a clean break but painful, requiring a cast and rest. As he worked, setting the bone with a click that made Marina bite her lip, Crow paced the hall, phone in hand. He dialed Jax, his second-in-command with the Iron Vipers, the line crackling before his gravelly voice answered. "Boss, what's the play?" "Marina's hurt bad. Domestic. I'm at Mercy General Willow Creek. Need eyes on her place. Make sure that bastard doesn't bolt and round up the crew. Quiet, no heat yet." Jax grunted assent, the bond between them forged in desert sands and barroom oaths. The Vipers weren't outlaws. They were the thin line between chaos and code. Riders who'd traded uniforms for vests, but never lost the soldier's honor. Back in the room, the cast gleamed white against Marina's skin, a stark reminder. The doctor pulled Crow aside, voice low. "This isn't from stairs. You, her brother, we can help. Shelters, orders of protection. But she has to want it." Crow met his eyes, the weight of old wars in his stare. "She will. I've got her back." Gratitude flickered in the doctor's nod, a silent pact between men who'd seen too much darkness. Marina signed the discharge papers with her good hand, the pen scratching like claws on metal. Outside, the sun climbed higher, burning off the mist, the clinic's lot now dotted with early arrivals. Crow helped her back onto the bike, but this time he took a detour. Not straight to safety, but to a neutral spot, an old diner on the highway's edge, where the coffee was strong and the booths offered privacy. The engine thrummed as they rode, the world blurring into streaks of green and grey. They settled into a corner booth, vinyl seats creaking under them, the air rich with frying bacon and percolating brew. Marina sipped black coffee, steam curling like ghosts, while Crow nursed his, eyes on the door. "Elias, I didn't want to call. Thought I could handle it." "You did right," he said, voice steady as an idling motor. "That promise I made? It's iron, we're getting you out. New place, fresh start. But Rick, we do this clean. Witnesses, records, no vigilante stuff." Her eyes welled, but she nodded, the first spark of resolve breaking through the fear. Outside, a Viper scout rolled by on a scout bike, a subtle signal, all clear for now. The diner clock ticked toward noon, shadows shortening as the day pressed on. Crow felt the pull of the road ahead, the crew assembling, plans forming like storm clouds. Saving her wasn't just extraction, it was dismantling the cage, brick by moral brick. Loyalty demanded no less, and in the quiet hum of the diner, that truth settled deep, an engine's steady pulse driving them forward. And now I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you. The diner's fluorescent lights hummed like a distant swarm, casting a warm glow over the checkered linoleum floor. Steam rose from their coffee mugs in lazy spirals, mingling with the sizzle of eggs on the griddle behind the counter. Crow leaned forward, elbows on the scarred formica table, his broad shoulders blocking the view from the window. Marina sat across from him, her newly cast arm resting on a napkin-folded pillow, the white plaster stark against the faded blue of her sleeve. Her face, still drawn from the painkillers, held a fragile determination, like dawn cracking through storm clouds. "Tell me everything," Crow said, his voice a measured rumble, low enough not to carry to the lone waitress, wiping down the far end of the counter. "From the start, no holding back." Marina's good hand traced the rim of her mug, the ceramic warm under her fingers. The scent of grease and toasted bread wrapped around them, a comforting veil in the midst of unraveling chaos. "It started small," she began, eyes distant, fixed on the rain-streaked window, where droplets traced erratic paths down the glass. Rick's temper, little snaps over money, the job. Then the yelling turned to shoves. Last night. He came home late from the garage, reeking of cheap whiskey and engine oil. I asked about the bills and... Her voice trailed, a shadow crossing her features. She didn't need to spell it out. The cast said enough, a silent testament to the fracture in more than bone. Crow's fingers drummed once on the table, a restrained echo of the frustration coiling in his chest. He could see it play out in his mind's eye, the dim kitchen light flickering, shadows lengthening as words escalated into something darker. But he pushed the image away, focusing on the now. "How long?" he asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Months, maybe a year." I thought. After the last time, he'd stop, swore on his life. Her laugh was bitter, hollow as an empty tank. Outside, the highway traffic picked up, semis whooshing past with loads of freight, their horns a faint bleat in the distance. The world moved on, indifferent, but in this booth time hung suspended, heavy with the weight of broken trusts. Crow nodded, absorbing it like oil soaking into leather. His own scars itched under his shirt, the ones from sand-swept patrols where promises to brothers in arms had been the only light in the dark. "You're not going back. That's final." He pulled a worn notebook from his jacket pocket, flipping it open to a blank page. "We document it all. Dates, incidents, the clinic's records will back us. Jax is pulling surveillance on the apartment, cameras from the street, neighbors who might have heard." Marina's eyes widened, a flicker of hope battling the fear. "The crew? Elias? Rick knows some of them from the garage. What if they ride with me?" Crow cut in, his tone unyielding as forged steel. Iron vipers don't pick sides for profit. Loyalty's our chain. He sketched a quick map on the paper, routes out of Willow Creek, safe houses dotted like hidden oases. The diner clock ticked steadily, its hands creeping toward 1, the lunch rush threatening to invade their solitude. A family slid into the next booth, chatter light and oblivious, underscoring the isolation of their fight. As if on cue, Crow's phone vibrated against the table, the screen lighting up with Jax's name. He answered with a grunt, holding it to his ear. Talk. Place is quiet. Jax's voice crackled through, rough as gravel under tires. Rick stirring. Saw him stumble out back, looking rough. No tail on your sis yet, but he's on the phone. Sounded heated. Crews assembling at the old mill 20 miles east. You want us rolling in? Crow glanced at Marina, her posture tensing at the mention of Rick. The air in the booth thickened, the coffee's bitterness sharpening on his tongue. Hold position. Watch. Don't engage. I'll bring her there soon. Keep it clean. No badges, no blood. He hung up, pocketing the phone, and met her gaze. He's awake. But we're steps ahead. The waitress approached then, notepad in hand, her smile practiced and weary. What can I get you folks? She eyed the cast with a subtle sympathy, the kind born from small-town familiarity. 2 burgers, medium, Crow ordered, adding waters without asking. As she walked away, the bell over the door jingled, drawing his attention. A local in grease-stained overalls entered, nodding to the cook, but Crow's instincts prickled, too casual, eyes lingering a beat too long on their booth, paranoia from the road or something more. He filed it away, turning back to Marina. We need a story for the road, he said. Temporary. Say you're visiting family out west. I'll front the cash for a fresh start. Apartment, job leads. Vipers have connections in Reno. Quiet town, good people. His words painted a picture. Sun-baked streets, markets bustling with second chances, a life rebuilt from the ground up. But beneath it, the undercurrent of sacrifice, leaving roots, facing judgment from those who'd whisper about weakness. Marina leaned in, voice a whisper. And Rick, he won't just let go. He's got friends, guys who owe him favors from the garage scams. Crow's eyes hardened, the morning light catching the silver threads in his stubble. That's why we build the case. Witnesses, photos from the clinic. If he pushes, we push back with truth. Courts, not corners. It was justice's slow grind he championed, not the quick flash of vengeance. Honor demanded patience, the kind that outlasted tempers and tides. Their food arrived, plates steaming with juicy patties and golden fries, the aroma cutting through the tension like a revving engine clearing fog. Marina picked at hers with one hand, appetite faint, but Crow ate methodically, fueling for the miles ahead. Outside, the sky deepened to a clear blue, clouds scudding like scouts on the wind. The phone buzzed again. Jax with an update. Rick peeling out in his truck, heading toward the garage. No direct path to them, but the net was tightening. Time to move, Crow said, tossing bills on the table, enough to cover and then some. He helped her up. The cast a cumbersome weight, and they stepped into the sunlight, the diner's door swinging shut behind them like a closing chapter. The Harley waited, faithful and gleaming, its tank reflecting the vast sky. Marina climbed on, holding tight as the engine awakened with a throaty bellow. They pulled onto the highway, the mill their waypoint, where the crew waited like a phalanx of shadows ready to stand. The road stretched north, asphalt shimmering in the heat, bordered by fields of golden wheat, swaying like whispers of redemption. Crow felt the pull of the promise, ancient and alive, binding him to this path. Saving her meant more than escape. It was rewriting the script of their shared scars, proving that loyalty could mend what fists had broken. Wind rushed past, carrying the faint scent of earth and freedom as the horizon beckoned with the weight of choices yet to unfold. Behind them, Willow Creek faded, but the reckoning brewed, a storm gathering strength in the hearts of those who rode for the silent. The old mill loomed on the outskirts like a relic from forgotten industry, its rusted silos piercing the afternoon sky, weeds clawing through cracked concrete. The Iron Vipers had claimed it years back as a neutral ground, far from prying eyes, where engines could idle without drawing heat. Crow eased the Harley to a stop in the shadow of a sagging barn, the gravel crunching under tires like brittle bones. Dust motes danced in the slanting sunlight, and the air carried the faint metallic tang of oxidized iron mixed with the sweeter bite of wild honeysuckle creeping over the fences. Marina slid off behind him, her cast arm held close, the white plaster now smudged with road grime, a badge of the morning's trials. Jax was the first to approach, striding from the cluster of bikes lined up like iron steeds at rest. His frame was broad, shoulders etched with the same war-worn lines as Crow's, his viper vest patched with a faded eagle emblem that caught the light. 20 riders flanked him, a wall of leather and chrome. Veterans with eyes that had seen sandstorms and street fights, mechanics nursing hangovers from last night's run, even a couple of ex-cops who'd traded badges for brotherhood. Their engines ticked coolly in the heat, a chorus of settling metal, while murmurs rippled through the group like wind over dry grass. "Boss," Jack said, clapping Crow on the shoulder with a grip that spoke volumes, solid, unyielding. His gaze shifted to Marina, softening just a fraction. "We got your back. What's the word?" Crow nodded, helping Marina to a makeshift bench of stacked crates near the mill's entrance, where shadows offered a brief respite from the sun's glare. The structure's walls, pockmarked with graffiti from long-gone taggers, hummed faintly with the echo of their voices. Situation's domestic poison. Rick's the source. Beat her arm to splinters last night. Clinic patched her, but he's stirring at the garage. We watch. We document. No charging in like bulls. The crew gathered closer, boots scuffing the earth, the scent of motor oil and sweat thickening the air. One rider, a lanky vet named Thorne, with a scar twisting his lip into a perpetual half-smile, handed Marina a water bottle, condensation beading cold on the plastic. "Ma'am, you need anything? Pain meds? A ride out? We're here." His words were simple, laced with the quiet honor that bound them, the kind forged in foxholes and forgotten rides. Marina took the bottle with a grateful nod, her fingers trembling slightly as she twisted the cap. The group's presence wrapped around her like a shield, faces weathered but kind, eyes holding stories of their own redemptions. Crow paced a slow circle, the sun warming his back through the jacket, casting his shadow long across the ground. "This ain't about payback," he continued, voice carrying the gravel of conviction. "Rick's tangled with shady deals at that shop, fencing parts, maybe worse. If we hit him wrong, it drags us all down. But we build the case, clinic reports, witness statements. Jax, you got the footage?" Jax pulled a small tablet from his saddlebag, the screen flickering to life under his thumb. Grainy video played, street cams capturing Rick's truck idling outside the apartment at dawn, then peeling out toward Willow Creek's main drag. No clear violence, but the timestamp aligned with Marina's call, a thread in the tapestry of proof. "Neighbors too," Jax added. "Old lady across the hall heard the yelling. She's scared but willing to talk if we keep it off record first." Crow studied the screen, the pixels blurring slightly in the bright light, his mind mapping the ethical minefield. Confrontation could shatter Rick in a heartbeat, fists or threats, but that was the easy road, the one paved with cycles of violence their father had walked. No, honor demanded the harder path, truth as the weapon, loyalty as the armor. Marina watched from the bench, her breathing steadier now, the crew's quiet vigil easing the knot in her chest. One rider, a woman named Lena with braided hair and a medic's patch on her sleeve, knelt beside her, adjusting the sling with gentle efficiency. "Breathe through it," Lena murmured. "We've pulled brothers from worse. Your family now. The word hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Family chosen, not born of blood, but beaten into shape by shared roads and solemn vows. Crow remembered the night he'd earned his viper colors, a rain-lashed highway, pulling a stranded brother from a wreck, the thunder masking their oaths. That same fire burned now, fueling the plan taking shape. We split. Half-tail Rick discreetly, log his moves. The rest escort Marina to the safe house in Pine Ridge, old cabin off-grid. I'll loop in a contact at the sheriff's office. Clean guy, owes me from the war. No corruption there. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the group, heads nodding like pistons in sync. But tension simmered beneath. A rider named Bolt shifted uneasily, his young face marked by fresh ink. What if he bolts, or calls in his garage buddies? They're no angels. Crow met his eyes, the sun glinting off his ring, a simple band etched with their creed. Then we adapt, but we stay true. No crossing lines that make us like him. Justice ain't a fist, it's the light that exposes the rot. The words settled like dust after a skid, the crew absorbing them, the bond tightening invisible threads among them. As the group dispersed to tasks, engines coughing to life, scouts revving away in pairs, Crow knelt by Marina, the ground rough under his knees. The mill's shadow stretched cooler now, the afternoon waning toward gold. "You holding?" he asked, brushing a strand of hair from her face, the gesture tender amid the grit. She managed a small smile, the first real one since the call. "With all this? Yeah. But Elias, what if the truth drags you down too? The vipers, your life on the road." He shook his head, the wind rustling dry leaves nearby like whispers of doubt. "Road's nothing without purpose. That promise I made you, it's the chain that holds me steady. We're ending this cycle, sis. For good." Rising, he offered his hand, pulling her up as the last bikes pulled out, a convoy forming like thunder on the horizon. They mounted up, the Harley purring beneath them, and joined the flow toward Pine Ridge. The road curved through rolling hills, wild grasses bending in the breeze, carrying the faint scent of pine ahead. Behind, the mill faded, but the reckoning advanced, slow, deliberate, powered by the unyielding force of loyalty. In the rear view, dust trails marked their path, a signature of riders who stood for the silent, weaving redemption from the threads of pain. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in hues of fire as the safe house beckoned, a fortress built on promises that time couldn't erode. If this story is stirring something in you, hit that like button. It helps spread these tales of courage and second chances to those who need them most. The cabin in Pine Ridge hunkered low against a backdrop of towering pines, its weathered logs blending into the encroaching dusk like a secret kept by the forest. Smoke curled lazily from the stone chimney, a faint signal of life amid the symphony of whispering needles and distant owl calls. Crow guided the Harley down the rutted dirt path, the bike's headlight carving a golden tunnel through the gathering shadows, tires kicking up puffs of red earth that settled like forgotten dust. Marina clung to his back, her good arm wrapped tight around his waist, the cast a rigid reminder pressing against his side. The air grew cooler, laced with the sharp resin of evergreens and the earthy dampness rising from the underbrush, a world away from Willow Creek's stifling confines. They dismounted as the last rays of sun bled into the horizon, painting the sky in strokes of crimson and indigo. Jax pulled up behind them on his own ride, engine cutting off with a final cough, followed by Lena and a few others forming a loose perimeter. The cabin's porch creaked under Crow's boots as he led Marina inside, the wooden steps groaning like old joints, protesting the weight of intruders. Inside, the space was sparse but sturdy, a main room with a stone hearth crackling low, threadbare rugs muffling their steps, and the faint scent of pine sap mingling with brewed coffee from a battered percolator on the stove. Lanterns cast flickering pools of light. Shadows dancing across walls, adorned with faded maps, and viper insignias carved into the beams, marks of sanctuary, etched by hands that had sought refuge here before. "Settle in," Crow said, easing Marina onto a worn armchair by the fire, its cushions sagging but soft. He draped a wool blanket over her lap, the fabric rough against her skin, carrying the faint must of storage. Lena moved in quietly, unpacking a medical kit from her saddlebag, fresh bandages, pain relievers, and a notebook for logging symptoms. The crew filtered in and out, some tending bikes outside, tools clinking like distant chimes, while others stood watch at the windows, silhouettes against the encroaching night. Jax handed Crow a steaming mug, the ceramic hot in his palm, black liquid swirling like storm clouds. Scouts report Rick's holed up at the garage, talking big to his crew, threats mostly. No moves yet, but he's riled. Crow sipped the coffee, its bitterness grounding him, eyes fixed on the flames leaping in the hearth. The fire popped softly, embers glowing like unspoken vows. Marina's breathing had evened out, the ride's vibrations lulling her into a wary rest, but her eyes remained open, tracing the grain of the floorboards. "This place. It's like one of your stories," she murmured, voice soft as the wind rustling the cabin's eaves. "The ones you tell me when we were kids, about hideouts in the woods where no one could find us." He knelt beside her, the floorboards cool and splintered under his knee, the heat from the fire warming one side of his face. Memories flickered unbidden. Those long-ago nights in the trailer, rain hammering the tin roof, his tales spinning escapes from their father's rage. "It was more than stories," he replied, his hand covering hers briefly, calluses rough against her skin. "It was the promise. Still is." The weight of it settled between them, a bridge over years of distance, reinforced now by the crew's quiet vigil, the chosen family that had become his anchor. Outside, the night deepened, stars pricking the velvet sky like distant campfires. Jax joined them by the fire, pulling up a stool that scraped against the floor, his presence a steady bulk. "Got a line on that sheriff contact. Hale. He's solid, pulled my ass out of a scrape overseas, says he'll review the clinic file discreetly, no official noise till we have more." The tablet passed between them again, screen illuminating their faces in blue glow. Additional footage from a neighbor's dash cam, capturing Rick's silhouette, arguing in the apartment lot hours before the break. No violence shown, but the tension hung in the frame, a prelude to the storm. Marina leaned forward, the blanket slipping slightly, her cast catching the firelight. "What if he finds us here? Or twists it? Says I'm the one leaving, that I started it?" Doubt edged her words, sharp as the chill seeping through the cabin's cracks. The fire's warmth pushed back the cold, but inside, old fears coiled like smoke. Crow's gaze met Jax's, a silent exchange forged in battles past, trust in the plan, faith in the code. "He won't. We're not hiding forever. We're building ground. Tomorrow, we get statements. From you, the neighbor, even that nurse if she'll talk off books. Hale can push for a temporary order, keep him at bay legally." His voice carried the rhythm of a well-tuned engine, steady and unhurried. Justice, in his world, wasn't a blaze but a controlled burn, exposing roots without scorching the earth. The Vipers embodied that. Riders who'd turned from chaos to guardians, their leathers a uniform of quiet resolve. Lena interjected from the kitchenette, stirring a pot of stew that filled the air with savory notes of herbs and simmering meat. "And you're not alone in this," she said, ladling portions into bowls, steam rising like morning mist. "I've seen it before. Women trapped in those cycles. We get 'em out, line up support, counselors in town, job hooks through our network. It's redemption, one step at a time." Her words wove into the room's fabric, a thread of hope amid the wood smoke haze. The crew ate in shifts, bowls passed hand to hand, the clink of spoons a counterpoint to the night's hush outside. Thorne shared a quiet laugh over a war story, lightening the air, while Bolt checked the perimeter, flashlight beams sweeping the tree line like a sentinel's gaze. As the fire died to embers, Crow stepped onto the porch, the night air crisp against his skin, carrying the hoot of an owl and the rustle of leaves. The bike stood sentinel in the clearing, chrome dulled by moonlight, a phalanx ready to ride at dawn. His phone remained silent, no calls from Rick, no urgent pings from scouts. But the calm felt tenuous, like the pause before a throttle twist. Back inside, Marina slept fitfully on the armchair, Lena watching over her with a mother's vigilance. Jax clapped Crow's shoulder as he passed. "We're locked in, brother. For her. For the oath." Crow nodded, the porch rail rough under his palms, splintered wood grounding him. The promise he'd made as a boy, fierce and unpolished, had evolved, stretching across wars and roads to encompass this brotherhood. It wasn't just saving Marina from one man's poison, it was dismantling the shadows that had shaped them both. Proving that honor could outride any storm. Stars wheeled overhead, indifferent witnesses, as the cabin settled into watchful quiet. Tomorrow would bring the next leg, gathering threads of truth, weaving them into a net strong enough to hold. The forest whispered approval, winds carrying the faint echo of engines yet to roar, binding them in the unyielding chain of loyalty. In the heart of Pine Ridge, redemption took root, slow and deep, as the night guard stood firm against the gathering dark. Dawn crept over Pine Ridge like a reluctant witness, its pale light filtering through the pines to dapple the cabin's porch in shifting patterns of gold and shadow. The air hung heavy with the scent of dew-kissed needles and cooling embers from the night's fire, a crisp edge cutting through the lingering haze of stew and coffee. Crow stirred early, his boots scraping softly against the floorboards as he rose from the cot in the corner, muscles stiff from the watchful hours. The cabin breathed with quiet life, Jax dozing by the door, rifle propped nearby like a silent ally, Lena tending to a fresh pot on the stove. The percolators bubble a gentle underscore to the forest's hush. Marina slept deeper now, curled under the blanket, her cast arm elevated on a pillow, the rise and fall of her chest a fragile rhythm of mending. He stepped outside, the door creaking on rusted hinges, and inhaled the morning's promise, clean, untainted, carrying the faint trill of birdsong from the treetops. The Harleys stood in a ragged line, dew beading on their tanks like tears unshed, chrome dulled by the mist. Crow's mind churned with the day's blueprint. Ride into Willow Creek under cover of routine, pull statements from the shadows, loop in Sheriff Hale without tipping the scales toward chaos. It was a delicate throttle, too much speed and the whole machine could skid into vigilante territory. Too slow, and Rick's web might tighten around them all. Loyalty wasn't blind charge, it was the steady grip that steered through fog. Jax joined him moments later, rubbing sleep from his eyes, the stubble on his jaw catching the light like frost. Crew's geared up. Thorne and Bolt heading to the neighbor first. Old Mrs. Ellis, she's got ears like a hawk. Heard the commotion clear as a rev. His voice was low, gravelly from the night watch, but laced with the unshakable resolve that had pulled them through sand-swept nights abroad. They shared a nod, the kind that spoke volumes without words, brothers in ink and oath. Back inside, breakfast unfolded simply. Mugs of strong brew passed around, slices of bread toasted over the embers, the smoky aroma mingling with the resinous wood. Marina woke with a wince, the cast a cumbersome weight, but her eyes held a steadier light, bolstered by the group's quiet solidarity. "I want in," she said, voice firm despite the tremor, as Lena adjusted her sling with practiced care. "The statement, mine has to be first, for the record." Crow met her gaze across the table, the lantern's dying flicker casting warm hollows in his face. "You sure? It's your truth to tell, but the road back there—" He trailed off, the unspoken risks hanging like exhaust in the air. the garage's proximity, Rick's potential shadow. But her nod was resolute, a spark of the girl who'd once dared him to jump the creek on makeshift ramps. Family chosen extended to her now, the Vipers, a circle of guardians, their presence weaving strength into her frayed edges. They rode out in pairs, engines awakening with muffled roars that echoed through the pines, scattering a flock of crows into the sky like black confetti. Crow and Marina led, the Harley humming steady beneath them, the path winding down from the ridge into valleys where mist clung to the meadows like veils. The wind carried the wild tang of sage and damp earth, whipping at their jackets as Willow Creek re-emerged on the horizon, its rooftops glinting under the climbing sun, a town that hid its fractures behind picket fences and diner smiles. Crow's senses sharpened, every curve a potential ambush, every shadow a reminder of the cycle they aimed to shatter. First stop, Mrs. Ellis's modest bungalow on Elm Lane, its garden overgrown with roses that bloomed defiant amid the neglect. The elderly woman answered the door with cautious eyes, her cardigan draped like armor, the air inside redolent of chamomile tea and aged books. Thorne stood back by the bikes, a respectful distance, while Crow explained in measured tones the need for her account, off the books for now, to build a shield without drawing fire. Marina sat beside her on the floral sofa, the cast drawing a sympathetic cluck, and as words flowed, recounts of raised voices piercing the walls, thuds that shook the floorboards, tears welled in the old woman's eyes. "I turned up my radio," she confessed, voice quavering like leaves in breeze. "But I knew. Should have called someone sooner." The statement scrawled on notebook paper became a cornerstone, inked with trembling hand, but iron intent. Outside, the sun burned higher, casting harsh light on the street where a neighbor's dog barked at their departure, tires crunching gravel as they moved on. Next, the clinic. Nurse Ramirez met them in the parking lot, her shift ending, scrubs crisp under a light jacket. The lot smelled of asphalt warmed by day and faint exhaust from arriving cars. "I can't go official yet," she whispered, glancing at the entrance where patients milled. "But the bruises, they match a pattern. I'll note it in her file. Flag for the right eyes." Her words were a quiet alliance, born of nights seeing too many like Marina slip through cracks. By midday, they converged at a roadside pull-off overlooking the creek, engines idling low as Jax relayed updates. Rick at the garage, barking orders to his crew, no sign of pursuit, but tension coiling like a spring. Crow's phone buzzed then. Sheriff Hale, voice steady over the line, the connection crackling faintly like static on an old radio. "Got the prelims from the clinic. Solid ground for a protection order. Meet me at the station edge, neutral spot. But Crow, keep your boys leashed. This town's got its own rot. Don't stir it." The warning landed heavy, a moral fork in the road. Crow pocketed the phone, staring out at the water rushing below, foam white against mossy rocks, the roar a distant thunder. Justice's path tempted shortcuts. Ride to the garage, face Rick with the crew's weight. But that echoed their father's legacy, fists over facts. No, the oath demanded integrity, the slow unraveling of lies with threads of truth. Marina touched his arm, her good hand warm through the leather. "We're doing it right," she said, echoing his thoughts, the wind tugging at her hair like an urging spirit. As they mounted up again, the group forming a loose convoy, the sky darkened subtly, clouds gathering from the west, heavy with the promise of rain. The road back to Pine Ridge stretched ahead, but detours loomed. One last witness, a garage co-worker who'd seen Rick's tempers flare. Tension hummed in the air, thicker than the humidity building, as scouts peeled off to cover flanks. Crow twisted the throttle, the engine's growl a vow renewed, carrying them toward the heart of the reckoning. Loyalty's chain held firm, linking past scars to future light, each mile a step toward redemption's horizon. Behind them, Willow Creek watched, its secrets stirring while ahead the storm brewed, not of violence but of truths that could finally break the cycle free. The pines welcomed them back, whispering of endurance as the day pressed on with unyielding purpose. The clouds that had shadowed their ride thickened into a brooding mass, unleashing a steady rain as the convoy crested the final ridge toward Willow Creek. Water sheeted across the Harley's windshield, the drops hammering like urgent Morse code, blurring the world into smears of grey and green. Crow leaned into the wet curves, the bike's tires slicing through puddles that mirrored the turbulent sky, each splash a cold kiss against his boots. Marina's grip tightened behind him, her cast protected under the jacket's fold, the rain mingling with the scent of wet leather and pine sap carried on the wind. The crew fanned out in formation, jacks leading the flank, engines thrumming in harmony, a rolling testament to unity amid the downpour. They veered off the main road toward the old quarry on the town's edge, a neutral scar in the earth where rusted machinery loomed like ancient guardians. It was here Sheriff Hale had suggested the meet, far from the station's prying eyes, where rain-muffled voices could seal pacts without echoes reaching the wrong ears. The group pulled into the gravel lot, headlights cutting foggy beams through the mist, engines idling to a low growl before silence. Water dripped from helmets and vests, pooling at their feet, the air heavy with the mineral tang of soaked stone and distant thunder. Hale arrived alone in an unmarked cruiser, its tires churning mud as it halted. He stepped out, raincoat slick and hood pulled low, his face a map of weathered lines under salt and pepper hair, eyes sharp from years navigating the town's undercurrents. Crow dismounted first, helping Marina down with a steady hand, her boots sinking slightly into the muck. The crew held back, shadows in the rain, their presence a silent wall of leather and resolve. "Madigan," Hale greeted, voice cutting through the patter, extending a hand that Crow clasped firmly, the grip exchanging histories unspoken, shared foxholes, debts from desert nights. "You got the file?" Crow asked, water tracing rivulets down his temple, stinging the old scar like a reminder of vulnerabilities past. Hale nodded, pulling a folder from under his coat, the paper crinkling damply. "Clinic reports, your sister's statement, the neighbor's account, patterns match, escalation, control, enough for an emergency order. Rick's barred from contact, the apartment anywhere near her." His gaze shifted to Marina, softening with the quiet empathy of a man who'd buried too many cases under bureaucracy. "This holds in court, ma'am, but it's your word that locks it." Marina stepped forward, rain beading on her lashes, the cast a white beacon in the gloom. Her voice, though soft, carried the steel of survival. "It's over, all of it. The fear, the lies. I want him to face what he's done, not just run." The words hung between them, laced with the raw edge of catharsis, the rain washing away the last veils of silence. Hale jotted notes on a notepad, the pen scratching like claws on bark, sealing her truth into the official weave. As Hale radioed the order through, static crackling over the downpour, Jax approached, his bulk cutting the wind. "Scouts say Rick's still at the garage, pacing like a caged wolf. Word spreading, his crews fracturing, some whispering about his scams. But the revelation landed like a skid on wet asphalt, Rick's empire of shadows crumbling under the weight of exposure. No need for confrontation. The moral tide had turned, truth's slow erosion more potent than any storm. Crow felt the shift deep in his chest, a release like easing off the throttle after a long haul. The promise from their youth, whispered in a trailer thick with tension, had carried them here, not through fury, but through the unyielding path of integrity. He turned to Marina, the rain masking the mist in her eyes. "You're free, sis. New roads ahead. Reno, like I said, Viper Network'll set you up. Job at a shop, quiet place with views that stretch forever." She nodded, pulling him into a one-armed hug, the cast pressing awkwardly between them. her breath warm against his neck amid the chill. "You kept it, Elias. That vow. It saved me. Us." The crew closed in subtly, Lena offering a spare poncho, Thorn a nod of solidarity. Their chosen family expanding, bonds forged in rain and resolve. Hale tipped his hat before driving off, taillights fading into the mist, leaving the air charged with closure. They rode back to Pine Ridge as the storm eased to a drizzle, the sky cracking open to reveal patches of hesitant blue. The cabin welcomed them with its familiar glow, fire rekindled in the hearth. Steam rising from drying clothes hung on lines strung across the beams. Dinner unfolded around the table, simple fare of reheated stew and cornbread. The clatter of bowls, a counterpoint to shared stories, laughter threading through the heavier tales. Marina's laughter came freer now, tentative but real. As Bolt recounted a botched run from years back, the crew's chuckles rumbling like idling engines. Night fell soft, stars emerging like embers in the clearing sky, the forest's hush broken only by the crackle of the fire. Crow stepped out once more, porch rail slick under his hands, the world cleansed by the rain. Below, the bikes gleamed wetly, ready for whatever dawn brought. Jax joined him, passing a flask whose warmth chased the damp. Rick's order hit. He's cooling his heels at the station now. No fight left in him, not with the evidence stacking. Crow took a pull, the burn steadying him. Good. Cycle breaks here. The promise fulfilled echoed in the quiet, a legacy not of scars, but of light piercing the dark. Marina appeared in the doorway, silhouetted by the fire's glow, her smile a beacon. Bed's calling. Tomorrow. Fresh start. As the group settled, whispers of plans for her relocation, trucks loaded at dawn, routes mapped with care, filled the air. Crow watched the flames die to coals, the heat fading into embers that mirrored his soul's quiet triumph. Redemption wasn't a blaze, it was this, standing firm, honoring the silent oaths that bound the broken to wholeness. The pines sighed approval, wind carrying the faint eternal hum of the road as sleep claimed them one by one. In Pine Ridge's embrace, family chosen had triumphed, weaving loyalty's chain into an unbreakable dawn. Thank you for riding along on this journey of promises kept and hearts mended. If stories like Crow's move you, hit that subscribe button. We've got more tales of honor and the open road waiting just for you.